This is crazy. So Gypsy Rose Blanchard's ex-boyfriend is finally speaking out. The man who fatally attacked her mother and refers to himself as Mr. Smiley. He wrote a bizarre email to the Post last week explaining his side of the story just days after this new documentary aired. Nicholas Godejohn started the letter by saying, "I want people to know that I am not lost in the ether of all of what is going on with whom shall not be named. I am just being patient for my true time to speak." When he was asked about Gypsy's newfound fame, marriage, and what life has been like behind bars, he only said, "I must be conscientious about my decisions. A lot of these questions will be answered in the foreseeable interview at the right time, which is not now." In the email, he seemed to be polite and almost childlike, using smiley faces about 6 times. At the end of the letter, he wrote, "Stay positive, healthy, and safe." Nicholas has been silent since Gypsy was sprung from prison on parole last month for convincing him to take out her mother following years of medical trauma that she inflicted upon Gypsy. But of course, she wasn't actually unwell, and her mother had been lying about her symptoms. Experts believe Dee Dee's behavior stemmed from the disorder called Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Because she wanted to be a caretaker, she lied about and actually induced illness in her daughter. The truth about the situation only came out after Gypsy arranged for an online boyfriend to take out Dee Dee in 2015. By now, many people know about these crimes, which were covered in the HBO documentary Mummy, Dad and Dearest and the Hulu TV series The Act, starring Joey King. Before the incident, Gypsy's mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, forced her to pretend that she suffered from leukemia, muscular dystrophy, and a list of other very serious illnesses. But we'll get more into that a little bit later. Since her release from prison after serving less than 10 years, Gypsy has done a series of high-profile interviews along with her husband, Ryan Anderson, who she met while she was in prison. And she's been very active on social media recently, which has been met with mixed reactions. In a comment on Instagram, she gushed about her love life and defended her husband from backlash, writing, "They jealous because you are rocking my world every night. Yeah, I said it, the D is fire. Happy wife, happy life." Gypsy Rose Blanchard has been a prisoner twice in her life, once as an inmate and before that at the hands of her mother. After serving over 8 years behind bars, she is now ready to start fresh and experience freedom for the first time. But she felt that she has to set the record straight about her past before she could actually step into her future. In her new docuseries, The Prison Confessions of Gypsy Rose Blanchard, the now 32-year-old woman tells her own story in her own words. She said, "I see myself today as someone trying to come out of prison and start a new life. I'm just trying to remake myself or reinvent myself into something that my family could be proud of, that my husband could be proud of." She says that she doesn't think she's quite there yet, but she's liking this new version of herself. Gypsy's story has blanketed the media, and everyone from true crime bloggers to court TV anchors have dissected the case. When talking about this documentary, she said, "I wanted to put out something that was very accurate. I wanted to put out something that was the truth. So much of what has already been put out there was either by people that honestly didn't know the ins and outs of my case or my life." Gypsy explained that ultimately she is the source because it happened to her, and no one has a right but herself to share her story. She now feels that she is emotionally stable enough to talk about it, and she doesn't want to keep being haunted by the past. She also spoke up about the biggest misconception in her case, which was the way that her mother was portrayed. She said, "I think people tend to forget, or maybe they don't even know, the reason why my mom was able to snowblind the doctors so much and the community is because she was so friendly. In the shows, they're portraying her as mean all of the time, and that is not how she was. According to Gypsy, she was actually very charming and very relatable. She would give a hug to anyone. She liked to cook for people, and her personality was bubbly and friendly to the outside world. But then, of course, we didn't really get to see what happened behind closed doors, where she was a different person entirely. And now, even though she's trying desperately to move on with her life, there are so many questions that remain." Gypsy explained that she still has questions about all the surgeries that she's had, since she hasn't even had a chance to look at her own medical records in full detail, and doesn't fully understand what was done to her medically, all the procedures that she had as a child, because her mother lied to doctors. She also has questions for her own family about things that happened before she was even born. In the docuseries, there's a number of times when family or professionals could have stepped in and removed Gypsy from her mother's care, and she's now speaking about why that never happened. She feels a big part of it is that there were people that had suspicions, including her family, but nobody wanted to rock the boat. It wasn't brought up to other people, and it just wasn't talked about. So people kept their suspicions to themselves just for fear of upsetting her mother, and ultimately pushing them away as friends. She does believe believed that certain doctors also had their suspicions, but at the end of the day, it also has to do with money. She said they were making a lot of money off of her, and in their profession, that came first. At one point though, CPS did come to her house to check on her, but they were asking the wrong questions, saying things like, show me your arms, show me your legs, checking for bruises. And at that point, her mum had never actually hit her. So of course, CPS didn't end up doing anything. They just came the one time and then they closed the file. Unfortunately, this visit caused Dee Dee to become increasingly more paranoid. She actually went as far as to remove the doorbell on the door because she was just so worried about them coming back. Now you might be wondering, did Gypsy hold any grudges against her family members for not removing her from her mother? Well, not really. She says that she doesn't hold anything against anyone now, and she's told the rest of her family that she doesn't blame them because she was so young when it all happened. Also, they were just as much in the dark as everyone else was. Now, onto a more positive part of her life, the fact that she's happily married and absolutely adores her husband. Ryan Anderson explained that his life after her release has also been a whirlwind. Quote, I've waited for this girl to come out for so long, and now she's home. It feels great to have her here. The support we've been getting from people has been tremendous. I can't thank people enough for everything. They love my wife just as much as I do. Ryan explained that there are many things he's looking forward to in their new life, like just being a normal married couple. Although for him, the most challenging part is when people make comments out of context and they run with it, like making TikToks about something that he might have said, except he feels that they took it the wrong way. In this way, everything that he says is under a microscope, and it's one of those things that he's just not used to. He does feel overwhelmed sometimes. And Gypsy said for her, she's just coming out of prison after 8.5 years, and everyone is well aware of her story before that. But she's still very new to social media, and she's on a learning curve right now. So when she comments or even likes someone's post online, she still has to realize that it would be seen by millions of people. And the rewarding side of that though is that she has this huge platform which she can use for good. In that way, she says it's kind of like a superpower. She was asked why she thinks Gen Z is obsessed with her on social media. And in response to that, she said, I'm coming into this brand new. I feel like I'm a new baby bird on the internet. I don't even know how to do all of the emojis. I think they relate to me in a sense because I'm coming out and experiencing things for the first time. So the things that Gypsy is doing now, she really should have been doing as a teen, but obviously she didn't get the chance to do that. So all of this is just a first time experience for her, which is where the appeal might be. The fact that she's learning about her identity while Gen Z is learning about theirs too. At this point, the reporter brings up the fact that she used to love cosplay and dressing up a lot before she went to prison. In response to that, she said, looking at old pictures of me wearing different costumes and stuff, even though the interest is there, I can't help but have a small part of me that still feels like when I put on a costume and put back in that time. But that's just something that she's going to have to work through with a therapist, because she says that she still has a lot of triggers that might be extremely subtle, and that could potentially be one of them. Ryan said that she probably wore those cosplay outfits and costumes to get out of the current life that she was living with her mother. So it was kind of like an escape. But she loves who she is now as a woman and as a person. Gypsy agreed with this and said, even though I've got a major interest in cosplay and everything, it's beautiful to look at, but I don't feel the need to change my identity whereas I did before. That interest in cosplay is actually how she met her ex-boyfriend, who, as we know, would eventually carry out the attack on her mother. So in 2011, Gypsy tried to get away from Dee Dee by running away with a man that she'd met at a science fiction convention, but she soon tracked them down via mutual friends. According to Gypsy, she then smashed her computer and physically restrained her to the bed after they returned home. She eventually managed to get back online and joined a Christian dating site where she met Nicholas. She told him the truth about her mother's actions and ended up asking him to take out Dee Dee so they could be together. In June of 2015, he came to her house and committed the crime while Gypsy waited with her ears covered in the bathroom. The two of them then returned to his home in Wisconsin, where they were eventually found by police. After the events of that day, many people who'd known Gypsy wondered why she had gone so far as to completely remove her mother from the equation. Since she could walk, she could simply expose her lies by standing up in public. But Gypsy has been conditioned to think that no one would believe her. She said, I couldn't just jump out of the wheelchair because I was afraid, and I didn't know what my mother would do. I didn't have anyone to trust. The fact was that she had spent her entire life being controlled and monitored by her mother. She wasn't allowed to go to school. Although she had normal intelligence, Dee Dee told everyone that her daughter had a mental age of someone much younger. When they were out in public, Dee Dee constantly held Gypsy's hand and squeezed it when she wanted her daughter to be quiet. Experts in Munchausen syndrome by proxy said that her life was completely and totally controlled by her mother, to the point where it could be compared to a hostage situation. And in that way, the crime that occurred was just her trying to gain an escape from this horrible situation.
Gypsy Rose was recently released from prison and within days is defending her husband while talking about the nights and long days they've had. And now that she's out of jail, she has her life to live out. So what is gonna happen now that she's finally been released? One thing's for sure, and that is that she's able to make the bedrock. Whoa, not that type of bedrock, but the one she has actually been open about since her release. In fact, behind bars is when she married her husband Ryan Anderson in 2022. And they met after he wrote a letter to Gypsy when he watched the 2017 HBO documentary about her life. And since her husband has now been in the spotlight as well, he's also been getting quite a lot of hate because of what people have to say what he looks like, especially because they've been comparing him to Gypsy's mom Dee Dee and how he gives them a bad vibe. But Gypsy was not gonna let the public disrespect her man. Oh no. She took it to Instagram to comment to tell him that she loves him and the haters don't matter. But she also included some extra detail that we definitely didn't ask for. The last part of her comment read, "Because they're jealous you are rocking my world every night. Yeah, I said it, the D is fire. Happy wife, happy life." I cannot believe she said that because her comment shocked me and a ton of people on social media became viral because of this one comment. And did you see people talking about her comment? Because I personally couldn't escape it. I mean, my entire TikTok was filled with Gypsy Rose edits, plus of course her comment with her husband. She has also become an influencer overnight. Hi sisters! No, not that type of influencer, but instead she's been using her platforms like Instagram and TikTok. And as of right now, she has over 6.4 million Instagram followers and is even verified. In her first post since her release from the Chillicothe Correctional Center on December 28th, she took a mirror selfie with the caption reading, "First selfie of freedom." Look at her smiling, posing, and already has a pink iPhone. It's clear she is happy to be freed. Plus, she has been active on her social media accounts, spreading her new life out of bars, and of course, sharing pictures of her and her husband Ryan. And in a pre-release interview, she told people that she hopes to build a social media following to change the future for others. She said, "I feel like I've been blessed with that ability to possibly create change, and that is what I'm gonna try to do." And her Instagram bio reads, "Advocating awareness about Munchausen syndrome by proxy." With some self-reflection, Gypsy has even shared how she realized what she did with her mom wasn't the right choice, so her mission now is to do what she did with her mom and make it worth something, and she wants to spread as much awareness about Munchausen syndrome by proxy and focus into mental health. Honestly, good for her because some influencers go straight on to OnlyFans the day they turn 18, and Gypsy on the other hand has been trying to advocate awareness since her release. One of the procedures her mother Dee Dee convinced doctors she had was excessive drooling. She would actually apply a gel that causes more saliva to form in the mouth on Gypsy's gums before her doctor's appointments so she could complain to them about that issue. Have you ever woken up from a nap and realized you drool a bit? What? I'm just asking for a friend. But unfortunately, Dee Dee's plan worked and Gypsy had both of her saliva glands removed. She even talked about how painful this procedure was, especially because she didn't have a good reaction with the anesthesia. But that's not all, because she has been suffering from long-lasting effects from this procedure as her mouth has been always dry and she constantly needs to clear her throat. In an interview with Dr. Phil, while she was still behind bars, you could hear her frequently clearing her throat. And with all that medication her mom would give her, she actually doesn't suffer from any long-lasting effects from that, which is definitely a good thing. But one health concern she actually has is poor vision and a lazy eye, compared to her mom's crazy claims of her having cancer and other health conditions, and was even able to convince doctors that Gypsy needed a feeding tube. And now that she's been released, a 6-part Lifetime docuseries that premieres on January 5th, which means it's out by the time you're watching this, so hello future viewers. Well, she actually participates in the series as she hopes to dissect everything that's happened to her and be able to tell her whole story and in her own words. And if you're wondering why it's taking so long for her to share her side in detail, Gypsy said it's because she's emotionally ready now to process her past. And there are actually a lot of things she wants to unpack in her life that has to do with other things more than just her mother. But at the time, everything was surrounded about her and her mom. She even admitted that while talking in the docuseries, she felt emotions she didn't quite expect. And if docuseries aren't your style, she is set to release her own book on January 9th that is titled Released. Okay, go get that bag, Gypsy. Many have also invited her onto their podcast, which included internet personality Trisha Paytas, so maybe in 2024 will be the year she becomes a YouTuber as well. Life is hard enough on its own. I get lost and confused every single day, but I couldn't imagine re-entering society after spending years behind bars because that's a lot of adjustment that needs to be done. Paparazzi captured a video of her while she was shopping, and let's take a look.
What's good?
Got these new shoes.
They look great.
Aw, she sounds so happy about her new shoes. I wonder if she's a Crocs girly then. But then she can add those little charms on it, and I'm actually curious to know what type of shoes she bought. Maybe Uggs, Nike, fluffy slippers, endless choices. Anyways, while shopping, the paparazzi made sure to ask a very important question.
Do you have any plans?
Lots of them? I'm shocked. And it's crazy because one of the first things she did since being released was getting McDonald's in a drive-thru and even talking about how she wants to meet Taylor Swift. Yeah, Gypsy herself is a Swiftie. That's a win. Her father would actually purchase her albums while she was still locked up, including her re-released albums, and shared how her music helped her get through her time behind bars. Alexa, play Fearless, Gypsy's version. Plus, the first week she was free, she attempted to meet Taylor herself by going to a Kansas City Chiefs game to hopefully run into the star. But due to Gypsy's growing celebrity status, local law enforcement officials thought she would be a security risk, ordered her out of Missouri. What a misery. Sorry, I apologize for that one, I just had to. As soon as Gypsy was released, her family welcomed her home with open arms as they held a welcome home party for her. Some attendees included her dad Rod, stepsister Christy, and her stepsister Mia. They shared photos on social media of them enjoying cake in a room decorated with gold balloons, spelling welcome home, confetti, and how can you have a party without a bottle of bubbly? Both Gypsy and her husband were photographed popping the bottle and enjoying her time with their family. And because her dad Rod separated from Dee Dee before Gypsy was even born, they didn't spend that much time together as Dee Dee would claim things about their daughter's health, and he even maintained a close relationship with her during her early years. But as she got older, the two became estranged as Dee Dee controlled many aspects of their daughter's life, and Rod himself told Fox News that she took a lot of time making sure there was distance between them. And when he would ask to speak to his daughter on the phone, Dee Dee would tell him that she was not available to talk to him. According to the Blanchard's neighbors, Dee Dee would badmouth Rod and label him with things that weren't true. So now that she's able to reconnect with her family, she's also able to rebuild the relationship she had with her father. And now that is not the only thing, because a TikTok user by the name @JessWesley made a video about the 2024 predictions, which included Gypsy herself as a model for Skims, which if you don't know is Kim Kardashian's shapewear line. And Jess made a follow-up TikTok showing a screenshot that Kim herself actually liked the TikTok, but it was on her joint account with her daughter North, and because they liked the prediction, Jess said herself that it would match Kim's values and passions such as justice reform. And because of this, many fans are ecstatic and excited to see if Gypsy and Kim really are gonna collaborate. Because don't you think this would actually be an insane collab? Like, if you put your thoughts on Kim or Gypsy aside, you have an A-list celebrity collaborating with someone like Gypsy. Do you think this would actually help boost sales and grow publicity? I feel like it would be talked about for days because of course the Kardashians are always talked about. Plus, the current hype on Gypsy's release would just skyrocket in sales. At least from my guess. I have no knowledge on sales, so that's that. Hey, producer Chris, would you purchase anything from Skims if Gypsy was sponsoring it?
Yeah, I'd be down.
While Gypsy was in prison, Fancy Marcelli and Tatiana Gisclair, who are family friends of the Blanchards, told In Touch Weekly back in 2021 that Gypsy didn't want the counseling that the prison offers as she didn't feel like she needed help, before adding that she needed better people around her. Fancy even added that Gypsy needed to change her behavior before her release, claiming that Gypsy is not open to it and is still putting on a show for the parole board. Although they want the best for her and appreciate Gypsy wanting to become an advocate, they believe that she still has a long road ahead of her and want her to live a good life, but notice she does need intense help. Tatiana even told In Touch that she knew Dee Dee was a master manipulator, although at the time she didn't have a reason not to believe it. Now looking back, she can clearly see all the lies Dee Dee told. It's always after the situation you're able to look back and see all the red flags. I mean, it's happened to me in obviously less serious situations. Plus, when she spoke to In Touch Weekly, she mentioned how she's able to reconnect with her family, which results in her learning new revelations about her childhood that she was previously in the dark about. Plus, she has her own version of her story and everyone else's, so she's trying to piece things as she goes on. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of The Act, but it's a series that is a dramatized version of the true story of Gypsy's life. And Joey King, who has been in movies like The Kissing Booth, The Conjuring, and Ramona and Beezus, plays Gypsy herself. And now that Gypsy's been released, she's actually able to watch the series that's supposed to showcase her life. Blanchard's family friend Fancy Marcelli told TMZ that Gypsy doesn't want to enforce the show because of inaccuracies. And these inaccuracies included exaggerated exaggerating her mother's actions, but Gypsy told Hollywood Reporter that she actually hasn't seen the act and doesn't know what's inaccurate in those versions of things, but decided to come out and share her story herself. I guess now that she's out of prison, she's able to see how the media portrayed her and her story as she corrects the inaccuracies herself through her upcoming projects. The D is fire, and that is a direct quote from Gypsy Rose. She was literally just released from prison after being sentenced for 10 years for participating in her own mother's tragic passing, and has since become a social media star overnight. I'm sure after years behind bars, she definitely has plans, cameraman. I mean, who asks that to someone right after being released from prison? But at least they confirmed, yes, she has plans. She has over 6 million followers within a week of her being released, and with fame comes criticism, but mostly towards her husband. While she was serving her sentence, she married Ryan Scott Anderson, and following her release, she has obviously faced critics as not everyone finds remorse in the situation. But she wasn't concerned about her haters, nope, not at all, but she defended her man in his Instagram comments and even made a shocking revelation about his But what led to Gypsy to even spend so long in jail? And why are people celebrating her release, especially because of what she was serving time for? Let's start from 1991, the year she was born, because she was born into anything but a normal life. Look how precious she was. She looked so healthy and there's no signs of anything wrong. But no one, not even Gypsy's father, family, or herself knew what Gypsy's mother was hiding. Her parents, Rod and Claudine, who went by Dee Dee, met and got married after the couple found out Dee Dee was pregnant. But they did separate shortly before Gypsy was even born, as her father Rod told BuzzFeed News that their marriage quickly deteriorated by the time he was 18, when he realized he wasn't where he was supposed to be and he wasn't in love with her and knew he got married for the wrong reasons. And when Gypsy was just 3 months old, Dee Dee believed she had sleep apnea and began taking her to the hospital. But after the doctors ran several tests, they found nothing wrong with Gypsy. But Dee Dee became convinced that Gypsy was ill and even told Rod that she believed their daughter had chromosomal defect and her health issues stemmed from that. Plus, if any doctors denied what Dee Dee had to say, she would switch doctors. And as more and more time went on, Dee Dee continued to falsely claim Gypsy these health conditions, and it got more and more severe. And with all the illnesses Dee Dee claimed her daughter had, she actually would put her daughter through unnecessary medical treatment, which we will get into in a bit. But first, how did Dee Dee even convince doctors to treat her daughter for all these conditions that were simply not true? Well, in August of 2005, Hurricane Katrina hit, and their house was destroyed. They later had to relocate to a rescue shelter where Dee Dee claimed all of Gypsy's medical records, including her birth certificate, were destroyed in the hurricane. And because this was indeed true for many people who were impacted by the devastating hurricane, this was unfortunately the perfect opportunity for Dee Dee to continue to paint a false and fake path for her daughter, especially when it came to her health and age. In fact, she convinced doctors she had leukemia, muscular dystrophy, epilepsy, respiratory illnesses like severe asthma, vision and hearing impaired, and even Down syndrome. Do you think people can get away with these lies in recent years? And when Gypsy recounted these hospital visits, she stated she would always have a stuffed animal or a Barbie doll, and Dee Dee would tell her to play with the toy, and when doctors came to examine her, she instructed her daughter to stay in her wheelchair, be calm, and play with her doll, as well as not to move her leg. And with the help of Habitat with Humanity, they moved into a new home, especially once Gypsy's story gained attention. Excuse me? A happy ending? Your daughter, who is perfectly healthy, has gone through painful surgeries and complies to you because she thinks her whole life depends on you. Gypsy underwent multiple surgeries and procedures which she didn't need, and this included gastrointestinal operations, and once Dee Dee claimed she has leukemia, feeding tubes were used even though she could eat on her own. When Gypsy spoke to Dr. Phil, she said she had over 30 procedures which included multiple eye, leg, throat surgeries, and even discussed how she was kept in a wheelchair after she scraped her knee during a motorcycle accident with her grandpa. Oh my god, I can't believe being in a wheelchair forever simply because my mother wanted me to be in one. Plus all those lies and manipulations, of course she would assume her mother knows best. And recently, in an exclusive interview with People, she recalled one of the most painful and unnecessary surgeries she received, and that still interferes with her life today. That was a removal of her 2 salivary glands, which are located behind her neck. She remembers how she didn't respond well to the anesthesia, which made the recovery process really difficult. The reason why she had to get this removed in the first place was was because her mother made claims that she had excessive drooling. Her mom would put a gel in her mouth, which caused drooling, and this would cause Gypsy to drool at her appointment. And Dee Dee would complain to doctors that her daughter drooled too much. And to this day, Gypsy has to clear her throat all the time, and apparently it annoys other people because she does it so much. She was also put on medication, forced to remove her teeth due to rotting, and Dee Dee even shaved Gypsy's head, which left her bald, and she would tell Gypsy, "It's gonna fall out anyways, so let's keep it nice and neat." And this was all when Gypsy was still a child. Gypsy believed everything her mom was telling her, and because she was manipulated since day one, she stated in a 2017 documentary that she was just as much in the dark as everyone else. In fact, Gypsy didn't really have a support system other than her mother. She was never enrolled in school, kept from having a relationship with her own father Rod, stepmother Christy, and other half-siblings, and she was limited to what she could watch and expose herself to, as well as other kids, and the only thing she knew from the outside world was Disney movies. And she said those don't talk about warning signs of bad parents. And every time Gypsy had suspicion and told her mom she didn't feel like she needed something, Dee Dee would be extremely upset at her and manipulate her. She even bribed her with toys in order for Gypsy to comply and visit the hospital. And once Gypsy became a teenager, things got even worse between her and her mother. In fact, things turned physical. Her mom would call her names and even hit, punch, and slap her in order for Dee Dee to get her way. Gypsy tried running away after she had another procedure scheduled, so she fled her home. But within hours was tracked back down and brought back home, where her mother gave her paperwork, which said she was competent and how Dee Dee had power of attorney over her. And this was when there was no return. Gypsy met Nick, whose full name is Nicholas Godejohn, on an online dating site, and as their conversations went on, he told her he would do anything to protect her. When she responded with anything, Nick said yes. And in June of 2015, the sheriff deputies found Dee Dee's body face down in the bedroom of her own home. And after neighbors found Gypsy's questionable Facebook post from that same day, they notified the police. Her wheelchair and medication were still in the home, which sparked concern of Gypsy's well-being. The next day, Gypsy was found in Wisconsin, where her and Nicholas traveled to and were taken into questioning. Yeah, that was Nick's interrogation. He talks about guilt and the blockage, yet presents himself very calmly. But what made the public change their heart was when the police announced to the public that Gypsy was indeed an adult and did not have any physical or mental challenges her mother claimed she had. And that's when people began to feel sympathy for this girl. I mean, she was put through surgical procedures, restricted to a wheelchair, took medication, and everything to treat her medical conditions that she didn't even have. But because she and her boyfriend at the time plotted the end of her mom's life, Gypsy was sentenced to 10 years and Nick was sentenced to life in prison without parole. But Gypsy was released 3 years before her initial release date. Although Gypsy has shared her remorse and even self-reflected, she has admitted her mom didn't deserve that. But Nick's attorney, on the other hand, argued that he was manipulated by Gypsy and should have his charges reduced, but just days later he was found guilty to the first degree, and his reasonings to participate in Dee Dee's tragedy were definitely questionable. And a year before her release, she married Brian Scott Anderson, who was a special education teacher from Louisiana. If she was behind bars, how did they meet? After Ryan watched the HBO documentary about Gypsy's case, he wrote a letter to her in 2020, and their relationship grew, which led them to getting married while Gypsy was still behind bars. Well, fast forward to her release date, December 28th of 2023 at 3:30 a.m., Gypsy was spotted leaving prison alongside Ryan and began sharing her journey of freedom all over her social media. And for obvious reasons, people were critical of Gypsy's release, but it seemed like most of the negative attention went towards her husband Ryan, as many shared clips of Ryan next to Dee Dee, saying they look identical, with others saying how he just looks creepy and they have a bad feeling about him even though he really hasn't shown his personality to the audience, so it may just be most people judging him off his looks. So Gypsy, being the good wife she is, decided to leave a comment under her husband's Instagram post. She wrote, "Ryan, don't listen to the haters. I love you and you love me. We do not owe anyone anything. Our family is who matters. If you get likes and good comments, great. If you get hate, then whatever, because they don't matter. I love you. Besides, they're jealous because you are rocking my world every night." Yeah, I said it. The D is fire. Happy wife, happy life. Okay, Gypsy, go off. If it's as fire as you say it is, good for you, girl. That wasn't the only thing that rocked her world, because her family family who stood by her side all these years welcomed her home with a party with all her loved ones, including her father, stepmom, stepsister, and of course the D himself. Yep, I'm referring to her husband. But they welcomed her with open arms and decorated the home with gold balloons spelling welcome home, confetti, cake, snacks, and a bottle of bubbly. Since her release, she has been photographed shopping for new shoes, living out of a hotel, and of course going through the McDonald's drive-thru. So clearly Gypsy is having a much better time now that she's free, obviously. And now there are rumors she's gonna be collaborating with Kim Kardashian for Skims, and a ton of other celebrities are celebrating her release under her Instagram. And Gypsy has even made it known that she is a huge Swiftie, and fans love to see it. And following her release, she has been doing press conferences to share her story and what's to come. But it was while she was on The View when those watching couldn't help but to be confused and shocked. From the moment Gypsy left prison at 3:30 a.m. on December 28th, cameras were already right by her side. And with exclusive interviews and even book deals, she has been a very busy girl. Although it seems like the public is split about their opinions on Gypsy, as many feel sympathy about her story and want her to live out her best life, and on the other hand, some people believe she needs more help and could be manipulative herself, with some believing she should still be behind bars. Well, regardless, she has been making a ton of media appearances on her own TikTok, Instagram, and every single post I look at. She's made it known that she's been an advocate and to raise awareness and potentially help those who suffered the same past as her, and help them find an escape, not the same way Gypsy did. And during her interview on The View, there was one particular question that made the internet go crazy, and that could never be a good sign. But Gypsy was sharing how she dealt with her situation the wrong way. Yes, she escaped her mother's years of harm, which included getting a feeding tube, numerous surgeries, and made Gypsy stay in a wheelchair even though she was perfectly healthy. But ultimately, she and her boyfriend at the time, Nicholas Godejohn, took Dee Dee's life, who was Gypsy's mother. And Gypsy actually had to clarify what she did was wrong after a little miscommunication happened on The View. It begins as Gypsy states, "You are not alone in this situation, there are other ways out, and I did the wrong way." Before Joy, one of the co-hosts, replies and says, "Don't say that, you had no choice." And just so we're on the right page, Gypsy's talking about the events of taking her mother's life. So for Joy to say she had no choice raised a bunch of eyebrows and even turned some heads. And good thing Gypsy was media trained or something, because she responded with something quite good. She stated, "I did something wrong and I paid my dues for it." And Joy replies with, "Oh, that part of it. Ako taco, am I right?" And Gypsy even told Joy that ending someone's life is wrong. I think this was some miscommunication because Joy genuinely seemed shocked when she realized what was going on. Her facial expressions also became a meme of its own. Take a look. Silence is loud. I mean, you could tell how this unfolded, and it could have been even more uncomfortable, but on television for everyone to see is a little bit extra to the air. And the response from the public have been all over the place, with one user on X, formerly known as Twitter, said, "I just threw my phone."
It was at this moment that he knew.
Can't believe that man just threw his phone into the water instead of his fish. But yeah, a lot of viewers watching this clip are not only in disbelief, but definitely took something serious and found some miscommunication in there. Another user replied to the video and said, "I'm sorry, I kinda love her press tour. She's been media trained down." And to that I say, good for you, Gypsy. I barely think at all, let alone during that situation, and I think I would have passed out if I was her. Others have been criticizing the other hosts on the talk show for talking over one another, but those replies to those complaints, right? It's The View, that's basically all they do. Plus, some controversial opinions have sparked debate. As one user said, she really didn't have any other way out through her mom. Had the world convinced she's mentally handicapped, they wouldn't believe anything she said, with many agreeing. I think this topic is quite hard to understand, especially because we don't know the full story. Plus, I get both sides of the public's reaction. What do you think, and what are your thoughts on Gypsy's story and the internet fame she got right away? Because some have also argued it's great to have millions of followers and a platform, but with a big platform comes big responsibility, I think is what Uncle Ben or something once said. Plus, I can't get over Gypsy's response because it could have been a very different video if she responded a different way. But regardless, the hosts all laughed about it, including Joy, when she realized what just happened. And of course, that is not the only awkward interaction Gypsy has had since her release, as she's been followed by paparazzi everywhere. And I think it's only time before she has her own reality show. One of the things Gypsy did following her release was shopping for shoes, of course, and there's actually a photo of her trying the shoes on at the store. Okay, work it, Gypsy. Let's see some 5-inch heels with red bottoms next. Just kidding. And if you're wondering what's so awkward about shoe shopping, well, it's actually the interaction I had with paparazzi after buying the shoes. Did you catch it? It was when the paparazzi asked if she had any plans, literally hours within her leaving prison. I haven't actually seen many people talking about this interaction, but when I first saw it, I was like, wow, literally me if I was paparazzi. It was just a choice of question, but do you think that paparazzi encounter was awkward, or was it just me? I didn't even think this type of fame was possible, especially after spending 7 years behind bars, and within the first few days of walking out, you're one of the biggest and most talked about topics and people. Rolling Stones even published an article with the title saying she's been yassified and claimed Gypsy as the internet's latest girl boss. She's been posting all over her social media with regular updates, including her outfits of the days, while doing press conferences. And now that she's no longer behind bars, she's actually able to spend quality time with the man she married while she was still in prison. In 2022, Gypsy tied the knot with Ryan Scott Anderson, who they first got to know after when Ryan watched an HBO special about Gypsy's story and decided to write to her. Even though Gypsy has acknowledged she had hundreds of men who would write to her in prison expressing their love, Ryan was the lucky guy. And because they had a small ceremony in prison, they have plans to have a proper wedding now that it doesn't have to be held in prison. Ryan actually spoke to people and described how Gypsy deserves a white dress moment and how every female deserves it. Plus, it seems like Gypsy already picked out every specific detail for dress, because when somebody asked her, Ryan was shocked how specific Gypsy wanted things and wanted to be able to give her that moment. And while we're on the topic of Ryan, the internet also had a huge reaction to Ryan's allegedly huge personality. I'm sure Gypsy is not entirely new at receiving internet hate, especially because she's been in the spotlight since she was young. But her partner Ryan skyrocketed to fame when Gypsy was released, and that led to comments that were mostly based on his looks to be everywhere. And Gypsy came to his defense. She basically told him not to listen to the haters because both of them love each other and nobody else matters. Plus, she added a few extra words about Ryan as she shares how the haters are just jealous because he's the one rocking her world every night, and added that the D is fire. Happy wife, happy life. And to be honest, most reactions to Gypsy's words have been people laughing and thought her response was,
"That was too good. Let's get the bell."
Gypsy has actually acknowledged numerous times that she definitely didn't take the right approach when it came to the situation her mom put her in. But at the time, she thought it was her only way out. And this was after years of going through it, as her mom would constantly lie to health officials and get away with it. Plus, if they had any suspicion or didn't believe Gypsy needed the procedures Dee Dee stated, then she would bring Gypsy to another doctor until one would actually continue. This resulted in Gypsy being forced to use a feeding tube, have her head shaved because her mom said she was suffering from leukemia, and could find her into a wheelchair. As terrifying as that all is, that's just a little taste of what Gypsy really went through. There was even a time Gypsy recalled her mother bringing her home and chaining her to the bed for 2 weeks. Plus, every time Gypsy resisted, her mother was able to manipulate her right back and listening to everything she said. In fact, once Dee Dee's body was found, police were actually frantically searching for Gypsy, as they really did believe she was unable to take care of herself. Her wheelchair and all her medications were found at the home, so some thought that she was taken. So now that she's officially been out of prison for almost 2 weeks, what now? One thing's for sure, and that is Gypsy is a huge Swiftie. Her dad Rod would send her Taylor's albums while she was still behind bars, and sent her the re-released albums as well. One of Gypsy's first plans since being released was to attend a Kansas City Chiefs game. Not for football, but mainly to have a chance of seeing Taylor Swift herself. But due to the extreme media attention she's been receiving, she actually wasn't allowed to attend due to safety reasons. So maybe she'll finally meet Taylor one day. But speaking about Taylor, Kim Kardashian, who has had a fair share of feuds with Taylor, was also rumored to be collaborating with Gypsy. Yeah, I know, it's crazy. And the rumor started after one TikTok user talked about how she predicted Gypsy would be a Skims model because it aligns with Kim's views on justice reform. And Kim actually liked that TikTok, which sparked rumors, so I wonder if Gypsy Rose and Kim Kardashian collab will be coming out or not. One thing's for sure, and that is her family is very happy to welcome her back after everything that happened, and they threw her a welcome home party with decorations, cake, and a bottle of bubbly to get the party started. Where's my invite, Gypsy? Her dad Rod was actually distanced from Gypsy early on in her life after Dee Dee made several claims about Gypsy's health, and with no reason to think she was lying, he did believe them. Plus, as Gypsy got older, Rod would call the home asking to talk to Gypsy, but Dee Dee would turn him away. And after they moved further away because of Hurricane Katrina and that ruined their home, Dee Dee had even more control over Gypsy than ever before. And it didn't help that she didn't have any friends, attend school, or be allowed to have any interactions with other kids unless her mother approved. And because Gypsy was so sheltered, the only thing she knew outside her home was Disney movies, which she said herself doesn't tell you the red flag of bad parents.
Gypsy Rose Blanchard and her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, from Springfield, Missouri.
Believe it or not, that is the same girl as this girl.
Living my best life, and y'all can't take that from me.
And the D is
Fire!
Gypsy Rose, who is the girl in both videos, was just released 2 weeks ago from prison and since then has been appearing in a ton of interviews. Gypsy and her husband Ryan were interviewed by Lifetime as they played games trying to guess what the other person's favorite thing was. But many pointed out it was one of Ryan's answers that was quite awkward. One question asked was what was Gypsy's nickname for Ryan, and they both had the same answer, which was Cuddle Muffin. And for Ryan's nickname for Gypsy, they both answered with the same name, and it was Snuggles. But when they asked which Disney princess Gypsy would be, Gypsy said Anna from Frozen, but Ryan guessed Rapunzel from Tangled.
What?
Yeah, what is right? If it still didn't click in why Rapunzel was a bad guess, well, that movie focuses on Rapunzel being held in a tall tower, isolated from the world, and meant to fear everyone except her own mom. And there's just a lot of similarities between Gypsy and Rapunzel. And to be fair, when I saw this clip, I actually didn't notice until I read the comments. One user wrote, "The Rapunzel thing is weirdly realistic," with another replying to that comment writing, "This is how I felt, screams volumes, and made me proud she picked Anna." And after each answer the couple gave, they would briefly talk about each other's answers, but they did skim over that for the Disney question, and many believe that the similarities were why. Do you think Ryan's answer could have made the situation or the air a little awkward, or do you think that they didn't even put the 2 and 2 together? Awkward is the perfect word to describe one encounter Gypsy had while appearing on the talk show The View. It all started as a group of ladies talked about Gypsy's past and also what the future holds now that she's been released after spending years behind bars for ending the life of her mother, Dee Dee, who would put her through several medical procedures and even convinced health officials that she needed a feeding tube and a wheelchair, all because of health issues that she had. But in reality, Gypsy suffered from nothing other than a lazy eye and poor vision. And when she appeared on The View, she spoke about her future plans and ongoing advocacy work for other victims before addressing the camera and saying, "If there is someone out there watching right now, please listen to me. Heed my words that you are not alone in this situation. There are other ways out. I did the wrong way." But before she could continue, Joy, who is another host from the show, cut Gypsy off, and honestly, prepare yourself because it definitely was not what I was expecting. Joy said, "No, no, no, honey. No, 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 don't say that," before adding, "You had no choice." And just so we're both on the same page, they're talking about the act Gypsy took to end her mother's life. Yeah, bad time for miscommunication, that's for sure. Gypsy continued to say, "I did something wrong and I paid my dues for it." And that was when Joy realized what was going on and said, "Oh, you mean that part." And Joy's facial reaction said it all. The other co-host had to remind Joy that yes, Gypsy's story is filled with different emotions, but at the end of the day, harming others is wrong no matter the situation. Eventually they did laugh it off, but in this clip, which suggests that Joy maybe didn't remember what Gypsy did, was wrong, or I don't know what happened there. And of course the internet had lots, and I mean lots to say. Majority of the reactions kind of resembled this.
Are you not embarrassed? This is really embarrassing.
Yeah, embarrassed to say the least is what Joy probably felt, but I honestly think it was because of miscommunication. Did you watch this clip online? Because it was everywhere. I thought the interaction honestly went as well as it possibly could have considering the miscommunication. All of them clarified it to Joy and then laughed it off. Gypsy has already accumulated over 8 million followers on Instagram alone within the past 2 weeks. And this doesn't even include the other following she has gained from other social media accounts like TikTok. She also has shared with the media how she's used to all the hate and doesn't let it get to her. After all, she's been in the media for years. But on the other hand, her husband Ryan was just recently into the spotlight. They actually got married behind bars in 2022, and they first met when Ryan watched an HBO documentary on Gypsy's story and wrote her a letter. Even Gypsy admitted more than 250 men sent her letters while she was behind bars. But something about Ryan must have stood out because they have been together ever since. But because he wasn't used to the media attention, it seemed like it affected him. But Gypsy was not gonna let anyone bring his man down. Oh no, because she decided to stand up for him. She basically commented under his Instagram telling him not to listen to the haters because they both love each other. Aw, how sweet. But that's before Gypsy says that his haters are just jealous of him because he is rocking her world every night. And also wrote, yeah, I said it, the D is fire, happy wife, happy life, and the public went crazy. In fact, the comments went so viral that people have been making literal edits of Gypsy. Let's take a look at this one. Wow, I can't believe they had all the transitions, filters, and all. But of course, people seem to be debated on whether Gypsy should be at the level of fame she is currently at, especially because of the whole situation. That video I just showed you has over 800,000 likes on TikTok, and some comments read, why are people editing a psycho? Whereas others are writing, this woman is getting everything she's ever wanted, I'm so happy for her. And no matter where or what, but if it's about Gypsy, a lot of people feel torn. I personally see both sides, but what do you think? Plus, with all the fame she's been receiving, it's only going to be time before she gets hacked, because that's exactly what happened. She explained the situation and even noted that they actually had a suspicion of who it could be, but they ended up changing the password and gained control over the account once again. But that was before Ryan jumps into the frame and says shame on you before Gypsy gets him away.
Shame on y'all.
Oh, baby.
Honestly, kind of funny to me, and it's really crazy how extreme her social media accounts have been growing so much that people would literally hack her just weeks after her being released from prison. The hacker took down her profile picture and changed her username, which honestly, comparing that to other celebrities being hacked, this doesn't seem that bad. I mean, I'm sure we all remember when Rita Ora tweeted that she would release a new song if her tweet got 200,000 retweets. But after only getting 2,000, the tweet suddenly disappeared and Rita claimed her Twitter account was hacked. Scary hackers, am I right? So it could have ended much worse. One of Gypsy's first public appearances were captured after she went shoe shopping following her release. And of course, paparazzi was there to film and ask her questions, and one paparazzi had quite an awkward one ready for her. Did you notice it? No one is really talking about this clip, but I noticed it right away. The paparazzi asked Gypsy if she had any plans, literally right after being released from prison.
You have any plans?
Lots of them.
Of course she has plans. Gypsy even replied by saying she has lots of them. Maybe he was just trying to figure out what plans she had, but the question came across quite general and made it seem like, I don't know, a bit odd. But like I mentioned before, no one is really talking about this, so I might be exaggerating when I felt like the clip was awkward, but obviously I want to know your thoughts. And if you don't already know who Gypsy Rose is, well, she was born in 1991 to Dee Dee and Rod Blanchard. Her parents split up before she was born, and within her first 3 months of life, her mom began claiming that Gypsy had several health issues. Rod, who was Gypsy's father, didn't really have a reason to think Dee Dee was lying, and he maintained a close relationship with his daughter. As Gypsy got older though, her medical diagnosis seemed to get worse, and when Hurricane Katrina hit and destroyed their home, Habitat for Humanity actually built the mom and daughter a new home, which was even equipped with a wheelchair ramp. And now that she's further away from her father, their relationship began to fizzle out, as Rod believes that Dee Dee would try to get Gypsy to maintain a distance from him, and because Hurricane Katrina wiped to many medical records, it was now even easier for Dee Dee to claim Gypsy had multiple illnesses. She used a feeding tube and stayed in her wheelchair and was bribed to sit down and not move her legs. Plus, she went through a lot of surgeries, including removing her saliva glands, which has caused her long-lasting effects because her throat's always dry and has to constantly clear it. Plus, Dee Dee even shaved Gypsy's hair and told her it was going to fall out anyways because Gypsy believed some of the things her mom said, which included that she suffered from leukemia. The harm doesn't stop there, as there's a ton of things Dee Dee would convince health officials of, and Gypsy had no other knowledge outside her own home, especially because she was kept isolated and didn't attend school, wasn't allowed to have friends with people her age, and her mom always monitored her relationships. Even when Gypsy tried to object and tell her mom that she didn't think she needed a certain procedure or medication, her mom would be manipulative towards her and would always get Gypsy to comply to her wishes. But that was until she met Nicholas Godejohn through an online website, and the two eventually had the plan to end Dee Dee's life. And since then, Gypsy has shared remorse and states that she's still dealing with guilt to this day. Nick is still serving his life sentence, and if you do some research, you will see why. But eventually, this led Gypsy to be in the hands of authority, where the story would slowly unfold. I think a lot of people are split on their thoughts on Gypsy because of her past actions, but also the reasoning why she did take action. Others I've seen sharing their opinions online and truly don't think that she would have made it out alive if her mother was slowly causing her health to deteriorate and she lacked a ton of social skills and education, as she was always in her mom's care. There has also been instances where Gypsy herself was feared for her life, and many believe if it wasn't Dee Dee, it would have been Gypsy. The whole case intrigues many, as it just is something that is so crazy and it deals with real people and real lives too. And now Gypsy's goal is to raise awareness, as she was a victim of Munchausen syndrome by proxy. And with her being released, it seems like she's a busy girl and she has lots of interviews, talk shows, books, and documentaries all coming out about her life. I actually haven't watched any recent documentaries she's been in, but I did know about this case years ago. Did you know who Gypsy was before, or just recently after she's been everywhere?